was two battles. One was by sea and the other was by land. But there's a book called The Final Storm by Jeff Sharer. It's excellent, even though it's written by a Marine. The book, I read other documentaries on it. I've seen documentaries, and they're all good. But there's one especially good documentary. You can get it on YouTube, and it's Okinawa Battle, World War II. When it comes up, you see about 12 squares. You look for the one that has an aircraft carrier, and it has a running time of 1 hour and 44 minutes. Excellent. I gained most of my knowledge. I spent a year and a half on Okinawa, a few years after the battle. I spoke to quite a bit of Okinawans, some Japanese. Over Okinawa in 1879. They considered the Okinawans, who were very peaceful people, inferior to them. The Okinawans never had a revolution or a civil war. They never attacked anybody. So it was very simple and easy for Japan to come in and take over the island. And the importance of Okinawa was that it was 340 miles from the southern islands of Japan and the Kyushus, and 700 miles to Tokyo. That made it a prime target to launch an attack on Japan, because the Philippines was 1,500 miles. And the Marianas were too far, and Iwo Jima was too small and far. Right here, excellent harbors for the Navy, here and at Naha. And for Curtis LeMay, he had in Kadena, with a large air base, 2 more in Yantan, and 3 up in this area right here on this island, Ayashima. The Japanese knew it was coming, and they had Plan A and Plan B. Plan A was to sink the American fleet, have all the troops inland, and to destroy them. Plan B was the same thing, except they would lose the war, but cause so much casualties and destruction that the United States would say what the Japanese wanted was conditional surrender. The United States is unconditional. Of course, he didn't know that, the general, that this island was going to be taken at all costs. The fleet that came to stay was that Navy 5th Fleet. The Japanese knew it was coming, and they had Plan A and Plan B. Plan A was to sink the American fleet, have all the troops inland, and to destroy them. Plan B was the same thing, except they would lose the war, but cause so much casualties and destruction that the United States would say what the Japanese wanted was conditional surrender. The United States is unconditional. Of course, he didn't know that, the general, that this island was going to be taken at all costs. The fleet that came to stay was that Navy 5th Fleet. Ushijima. He was an excellent general, and he had excellent troops. He had troops brought in from China and Manchuria. They were seasoned, experienced fighters. Now, Okinawa was 60 miles long, 6 miles at its widest and 2 miles at its narrowest. So we're talking about 30 miles here. Within this 24-mile area, 250,000 people died. They had 120,000 troops. This part of the island, of course the island went north to south. Unfortunately for America, that everything went east to west. You had a flat land, and then it would gradually rise up. And as it rose up, there was nothing but about over hundreds of caves, large ones, medium-sized, small. And what the Japanese general did, he built in hundreds of bunkers. Now he had artillery into there, mortars, machine guns, and his infantry. What he also did he had 3 lines of defense. First line, Yakutsk, Naha, and Shuri. Shuri being the highest. What his command post was at Shuri, and he had a tunnel, reinforced concrete, 200 feet deep. And he had tunnels, over 200 miles of tunnels going all over in this area, reaching to his caves and positions. Now, in his bunker was a hospital, food, ammunition, and they were well protected. Had what was left, what the United States Navy, what was left of the Japanese Navy, was the largest battleship, the Armada, with a cruiser and 5 destroyers, which on a one-way fuel to get to Okinawa, attack whatever ships they could, to beach the ship, and then join up with the Japanese. They also had, Tokyo also had, for Okinawa, Japanese, almost 8,000 aircraft, most of them kamikaze. A lot of them were bombers. What we had, the general in charge of the Army and the Marines, Simon Bolivar Buckner, Jr. Sr. was a Confederate general in the Civil War and was very distinguished, and Jr. wanted to live up to that family reputation. Oddly enough, the Japanese general and the American general both died in the Battle of Okinawa, which in modern history has never happened. What we had, the general in charge of the Army and the Marines, Simon Bolivar Buckner, Jr. Sr. was a Confederate general in the Civil War and was very distinguished, and Jr. wanted to live up to that family reputation. Oddly enough, the Japanese general and the American general both died in the Battle of Okinawa, which in modern history has never happened. Now, going for us was 3 Army divisions, 2 Marine divisions, and one Marine division in reserve. 300,000 men. And they were getting ready for the largest invasion in history. What we had, the general in charge of the Army and the Marines, Simon Bolivar Buckner, Jr. Sr. was a Confederate general in the Civil War and was very distinguished, and Jr. wanted to live up to that family reputation. Oddly enough, the Japanese general and the American general both died in the Battle of Okinawa, which in modern history has never happened. Now, going for us was 3 Army divisions, 2 Marine divisions, and one Marine division in reserve. 300,000 men. And they were getting ready for the largest invasion in history. Also, what we had was the 5th Fleet. Now, there's a little confusion there, and I don't think everybody's ever solved it. It was the 3rd Fleet, then the 5th Fleet. On March 23rd, 5th Fleet came in under Admiral Spruance. Spruance came in, took care of these islands, and they built dry docks, put in supplies, ship tenders, take care of repairs. Shelled it for 1 week. In the middle of April, he was replaced by Admiral Halsey. For what reason, I don't know. Maybe Nimitz wanted a bulldog for this fight. Now, the United States Navy, Fifth Fleet, accomplished something that never has ever been done in the history of naval warfare, before or since. 1,500 ships, 40 aircraft carriers and 2,000 aircraft, 21 battleships, 11 of the new type, the Iowa type, 16-inch guns. 10 of them were the old battleships, 14-inch guns. Now these older battleships were never used to fight the Japanese Navy. What they were used for is to support the troops on islands, Tinian, Saipan, Peleliu, and so on. And that's what they did over here. They also had 18 heavy and light cruisers, 24 rocket launch ships, and over 100 destroyers. Destroyers used as pickets, radar pickets, pick up enemy aircraft. Also patrol the coasts. Now, the invasion took place on Easter Sunday morning, April 1st, when the troops went in. The first day was 60,000 troops. Nobody was there. Second day, more troops came in, no Japanese. Third day, no Japanese. And the fourth day, they had taken Kadena Air Base very easily and then went down about as far as here. But on the sixth day, over 300 kamikaze came down, attacking the Fifth Fleet. Fifth Fleet took numerous ships that were damaged, 2 were sunk. Now here's the thing what the Navy did. For 83 straight days, the Japanese would come in the morning. They would come in the afternoon. They would come in at night. They would come in 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, month after month, without stopping, combat. 36 ships were sunk. 365 damaged. And we're talking about the flagship Bunker Hill. It was so badly damaged it couldn't even, they salvaged it but couldn't use it. The flagship then went to the Enterprise, and 2 days later that got hit, and so on as it went. Constant battle. Now what had to be done? There was 4 task force, 51, 54, 77, 57, and 58. The one task force under the British Admiral Sir Bernard Rawlins, with 4 aircraft carriers, 6 destroyers, and a cruiser, would protect the fleet from Formosa, because there were Japanese kamikazes coming off from Formosa. That was their assignment. Admiral Michener, his assignment was to protect the fleet.